I've known Joe for a couple of years. He's a part of our Facebook group. I've interviewed him on my podcast, and I watch his show. I've read his book, The People's Guide to Publishing. I've given his book to my publisher when they were just getting started. I've seen Ellie on their podcast and videocast feed, but I have never actually talked to her, so I am very, very, very excited.
Well, we are Microcosm Publishing and Distribution, and so we were founded by Joe in a closet, literally 24 years ago. Focus on publishing nonfiction that is about how to change your life and then change the world around you. So the idea is self-empowerment. All of our books are designed to help you make your life more awesome, rather than to make you feel more insecure or all those things that self-help books sometimes do.
I hear it a lot from entrepreneurs where they say that a successful organization sets out to solve a problem rather than to make money or anything else. And so that really was very much it. We weren't designed to become a business. We weren't really setting out to create even a job for myself. It was more like, okay, well, there's not enough books, coming out in these veins, that are of any interest to me. And so that was really the motivation from the get-go. And I was a undiagnosed, teenage autistic kid. And, I had 2 feet firmly in punk rock. And so I didn't have a high school education, but the funnier part is that I was really interested in the band The Ramones, so when I was a teenager, I shoplifted this book about the Ramones, and despite having not read a single book in high school English, I was like, books are amazing! And, one night I was hanging out at the club that, I ran with my friends, and, I was like, I'm going to start the punk rock version of publishing. And they all were like, yep, good luck with that.
Whatever.
And then I ran into some of them in recent years, and they're like, you actually did do that thing we talked about. Most people that I talk to that are founding publishing companies are doing it for the sake of their own writing, which was never my thrust. That ironically came later. Because, it's like I knew I had no education. I knew I had no qualifications to do writing like that, though I was encouraged by people over the years, or sometimes you see a gap that no one else is fulfilling, and that can be motivating too.
That the question that most people are going to ask me is to introduce your dog.
Oh yeah, this is Ruby.
It's a fixed review.
Her first book will be coming out this year. It's called Do Not Pet. And it's the social history, the science, and the law, and and other kinds of history about service dogs. Because she's normally the most popular of our entire staff whenever we go to, trade shows, sales conferences, etc. And so that and people are always remembering her name and not remembering my name.
About 4 or 5 times a week, someone just blindly messages you guys with a submission, and sometimes they don't even do you the service of changing the name of the publisher that they really want to be with. What they can do right to really stand out from the crowd and give them a leg up.
I think we should take good first.
Yes, we believe strongly on the side of good.
So the very most important thing anyone can do when they pitch us or any other publisher is look at our instructions and look what we want in a pitch and follow that.
Type the name of the publisher and type submission guidelines. I guarantee you that they have. And if you just read those, follow the instructions. Please just do what they ask you to do.
And we get these walls of text. That's probably the biggest problem, where it says nothing, it doesn't speak to the guidelines, there's no paragraph or line breaks, and you have to read 80% of the way down before you get to the lead, which, should be the first sentence and often the only sentence, because it's telling you what we need to know, and fundamentally that's why we're reading a pitch. We don't want to know everything about you. We don't want to know what this book means to you. We want to know what this book means to the reader, and I think that's where people get lost a lot. So if you start with reading the instructions, seeing if the publisher is accepting submissions presently, following the instructions, and then, telling them why they care about your book. Those are probably the simplest things. And cutting any, you're a writer. So cut every extraneous word from that submission, and that will deliver you everywhere. I can tell when somebody put time into a submission, and I can tell when somebody's anxiety had them just like flurry a bunch of words, and then hit send out of anxiety. It's readily apparent.
Yeah.
Every single time.
How many of your pitches have that feeling of, this looks like a rough draft?
It's hard.
20%, 80%?
95, I would guess, would be like,
okay.
Because we get about 2 to 3 a day.
That's what I hear.
On average. And, and then the other thing is, we have a way to submit to us, but people often think that they'll have better odds if they find a back door. So they'll send me like a private message on LinkedIn or, and it's like, it doesn't go to all the proper parties if they do that. And then, I don't check my messages on other platforms. I mean, definitely not like I do at my, the submission inbox, which is where submissions should go.
Right.
And so that's...
Yeah, and you actually want submissions. Like, if they follow the submission guidelines, like, it's not that... That's another thing. I'm glad that you're bringing this up. Often, the back door is the door where they're not going to get the attention that they really want their manuscript to have in order to be considered. It becomes a distraction and an interruption, and they're not going to have your full focus.
Yep. Can I tell you, though, the absolute pitches to me are the ones that are defensive and entitled.
Oh.
Like, we got one pitch recently that literally, the pitch was like, I have an idea for a book. Often, I think this was one of the pitches where, like, the idea is still a secret because they don't want us to steal it, but they could make a lot of money. And then, like, giving equal time in the pitch to saying, like, I have been ignored by so many publishers, and I will consider it a personal insult if you also ignore me and don't respond to me, because I am a professional and I deserve more respect than that.
We get that about 3 or 4 times a year only, fortunately, but often it is accompanied by, and I will not tell you what the book is about.
You have, like, what seems like, according to the data that you have released, your breakout hit of the last couple of years was Unfuck Your Brain and your Unfuck. Was that the best pitch that you heard? Like, what was the best pitch you heard? What was the one that you were like, you have to read this pitch. Like, we have to move this up to the top of the line.
Joe forwarded me a pitch, and the pitch was for a book called Your Brain is an Asshole. And it wasn't a pitch at all. It was like a PowerPoint presentation with 10 slides and no image, just the text. And he was like, I think this is the book that will that will be huge for us. And I was like, this is insane. I don't think we should do it. And Joe was like, no, we should really do it. Make it work. And this is why Joe is the acquisitions editor.
People often talk about like golden ears in like record label acquisitions because it's so speculative and there's nothing to look for other than like future trends. And I do feel like I have 2 job skills, and one of them is making things fit where they do not belong, and the other one is this is going to be a big deal.
And you called it. And then, we made the title a little more positive, Unfuck Your Brain, instead of Your Brain is an Asshole, because, it's all about being nice to your brain, not talking shit about your brain.
And the author did just about everything wrong. She had been shopping the book around for several years at that point. She had been categorically ignored. Not even been getting responses, which is normally a good indication that there's something, like, fundamentally cracked about the pitch.
It wasn't the smoothest pitch.
No.
But you saw the value in it.
But, I mean, that's part of the job, too, is, like, reading between the lines. Sometimes I'm, like, a little too idealistic in, like, what I try to see somewhere where there's really nothing to see. That normally falls apart during acquisition. I have to trust the people that have skills that I don't have to come and be able to be honest with me and say, the idea was good, but there is nothing here. So that's why we're a team. The author had the credential. The author had 20 years of experience, working with clients in private practice. There was a lot of just dilution of existing works in print made simpler. Like, she's very good at summarizing executively. We don't really look for platforms so much as, like, she's not just repeating other people's ideas. She has her own ideas.
Like, she had a voice that was different. Like, it felt like, oh, your brain is an asshole. Like, this is a thing that I can, like, work with. Like, I understand, like, how the the book is going to be written just by the title, and it fits what we are trying to do. Was there some of that too?
I think so. I mean, she writes the way she talks.
Yeah.
Which, like, is both a wonderful thing and also a challenge as an editor. Like, we have to do a lot of kind of, like, putting it into format, but, like, it's so much better to have her original ideas that we then need to format than to have someone who has, like, beautiful writing but nothing to say. Yeah, we could tell that right away that she just had, like, a ton of personality and also just, like, a really hard worker. Like, she is our most prolific author. She sits down and she makes text happen. I mean, yeah, that's like also something that we're looking for, is someone that we know we can work with.
And she's doing, I think she has 8 books that come out this year, for example.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, nobody can write this kind of nonfiction as fast as she does. Even though we have to do a lot of hand-holding, like, it's definitely better than somebody turning in finished work that is, in fact, not publishable.
Yeah, and she, like, also does not bring her ego into it at all, Like, if I'm like, okay, this whole chapter needs to be completely rewritten, she'll be like, ugh, but then she'll do it. I've been trying to train other people to edit her just because it's, like, more than one person's work. Like, she can outrun 3 of us at once.
Yeah.
In terms of her writing pace. Yeah, she can.
She's not trained as a writer. She's trained, she's been a counselor. She is a doctor of psychotherapy, so her skill is not in presenting the hierarchy of information. So she's a more difficult edit, I think, than most.
How do you decide if a title needs to be changed?
As a rule, we almost never go with the author's title. Like, when you're writing a book, you're just too close to it. Like, you don't want a title based on what's in the book. You want a title that is based on what the reader wants to see, that then will lead them into the book. And once you've, like, spent dozens of hours and you've, like, really deeply thought about what the book is about, it's really hard to come up with a title that will introduce the concept to someone unfamiliar with it. I mean, just as publishers, like, we struggle a lot with coming up with titles anyway. I would say that's maybe the hardest part of the job, other than the bookkeeping.
Yeah. And, I mean, cover development, similarly, like we're talking about. This was a book, it was published by a Big Five house in 2010. And we knew the author, we had a relationship, we had done some other books with her. And then when this went out of print, it was apparent that it wasn't quite what the author had intended. And we knew
What was
her.
the name of it originally?
Bluebird Women and the New Psychology of Happiness, which kind of, I don't know, the cover looked like a wedding cake.
It looked like it was about how weddings would make women happy, when the book is about the opposite of that.
Don't be married to your title of your book, because if your title of your book can't change, if you are so wedded to all the different details of your particular book, you clearly are an independent author, and you shouldn't be bothering Joe and Ellie with your submission. Be happy when your publisher comes up with a different title for your book. Be thrilled when your publisher says, oh, by the way, we've thrown out your old cover with a little pastel bird on a wedding cake on it. And now it's bright yellow with red lettering, and half of the people in your family are going to be profoundly insulted by the title. But the thing is,
but the other half,
when you go to a traditional publisher.
Thanks for joining us once again.
Please send your questions to podcast@microcosmpublishing.com so we can answer them on future episodes.
And please give us 5 stars on iTunes and everywhere else that podcasts are reviewed.
You can find us on the internet at microcosm.pub.
On Twitter at Microcosm.
On Facebook at Microcosm Publishing.
On Instagram at Microcosm_pub.
And here in Portland, Oregon on North Williams Avenue.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful week.